According to police, Pamela was driving westbound here on Colfax near I-25 right about midnight. When she came to a stop, police say a man got out of a car, walked up to Pamela's car, and fired several shots. She was hit at least once in the head and died a few days later. Under Colorado law, a defendant can be convicted of murder if a person was killed during the commission of certain felonies, like burglary or robbery. It doesn't matter if the defendant was the actual killer. If they were involved in the felony, they can be convicted of felony murder, like Curtis Brooks. Corporal Hansen said the body was found in the back room of the house, set up on what appeared to be some type of a shrine in a sleeping bag on a bed. He also said the body was fully clothed, decorated with Christmas lights, and with glitter makeup around its eyes. Deputy Laughlin is also the only woman in Colorado who trains the trainers, teaching courses to law enforcement driving instructors throughout the state, as well as some from New Mexico, Nevada, and Wyoming.
Do you need to be arrested right now? No. Okay.
10 months after Karen Garner was forced to the ground by police and handcuffed behind her back, the two officers who arrested her have resigned from the Loveland Police Department, as well as the community service officer who helped book Garner into jail.
I know there's a lot of questions on this case.
The 73-year-old Garner, who suffers from dementia, was forcibly arrested by officers Austin Hopp and Daria Jalali, accused of shoplifting about $14 worth of soda and laundry detergent from a Walmart near her home. Garner's lawyer says the officers dislocated Garner's shoulder, broke a bone in her arm, and sprained her wrist, and that Garner then spent 6 hours behind bars without medical care.
It doesn't make any sense why they did what they did. She was going about her way, and all she could tell me was, I don't understand why they hurt me.
Earlier this week, Garner's lawyer released surveillance video that appears to show officers Hopp and Jalali laughing and celebrating while watching body camera video of the incident right after it happened. At a press conference today, Loveland Police Chief Robert Ticer said he was personally hurt by what he saw in those videos.
Our goal at the Loveland Police Department has always been to make our community proud. We failed, and we are very sorry for that.
But Garner's lawyer says the chief's apology isn't nearly enough, and she's once again calling on Ticer to resign or be fired.
He's the leader of that department, and he is responsible for what happens in it.
Last week, the Larimer DA announced that the Fort Collins Police Department will lead a criminal investigation into the incident, and Garner's family has now filed a federal lawsuit against the officers involved and the city of Loveland. It was 20 below zero, whiteout conditions, nearly 12,000 feet up.
It was snowing really, really bad.
Just before midnight, January 6th, 1982.
I thought it was the craziest thing I ever heard of.
A passenger on a United flight to California saw lights flashing on Guanella Pass. He told the flight crew, and they called down.
Dispatch called and said they had a call from a sheriff up there in the sky that said he saw SOS lights flashing on top of Guanella Pass. Wanted to know if anybody could check it out.
Dave Montoya, a fire chief in Clear Creek County, answered the call.
I just happened to be the guy that drew the straw to go get up.
39 years later, Montoya still vividly remembers the moment he saw a pickup truck stuck in a snowdrift at the top of the pass. The driver overjoyed to see him.
And sure as heck, there he was in his little pickup with the exhaust going out, and he saw me and he freaked out. He said, God, I'm saved.
How did he seem to you in general?
A little bit drunk, but really happy to see me. He wasn't nervous. This is why I got drunk and I decided to go home. And I said, you came up over the pass? He says, yeah, well, it seemed like a good idea. And I said, how in the heck did this guy get so lucky to have all that stuff fall into place?
Montoya says he recognized the man he rescued from a local mine where they both worked.
He was all right. He was just another employee. He was a mechanic. I was a miner.
But he didn't know him well.
I never had a problem with him.
And never saw him again.
We ended up picking up the guy straight out of hell.
Until he saw his mugshot on television earlier this year.
On February 24th, we arrested Alan Lee Phillips.
Just a few hours before Phillips was rescued in 1982, 22-year-old Annette Schnee and 29-year-old Barbara Oberholzer went missing in Breckenridge. They were later found shot to death, their bodies and personal belongings dumped at remote locations several miles from town and not far from Guanella Pass.
Everybody loves a mystery, and every murder is a mystery.
And these murders remained a mystery for nearly 4 decades.
It's an extremely difficult case.
Charlie McCormick should know.
I was just trying to do a professional job and solve it.
A retired Denver homicide detective, McCormick moved to Breckenridge in 1976, having burned out on murder cases.
I'd had it with homicide investigation. It was too stressful.
But something about the double murder in Breckenridge captured his interest, and over time he became more and more involved.
Whatever fire had gone out was reignited, and I've been involved in it ever since.
McCormick says he's worked on the case almost every day for the past 32 years, the last 22 as a volunteer on the district attorney's task force, poring over evidence, interviewing people, pursuing leads.
So we had the leads of 2 or 3 serial killers in Montana, in Idaho, so we spent a lot of time researching and going there.
At one point, McCormick says the investigation even went overseas.
If I had done something like that, I'd be long gone.
Turns out he didn't have to look that far. The suspect now charged with the murders apparently never left Colorado, living for the past 13 years just behind a popular rest area off I-70 in Dumont, about 20 miles from the mountain peak where he nearly lost his life 39 years ago.
He's on his own. He's going to have to stand trial.
The suspect's name? That's right, Alan Phillips.
After avoiding it for all these years, he's now going to have to deal with it.
A feeling echoed by the man who once plucked Phillips from the snow-covered top of Guanella Pass.
He got his mercy. He got saved. He got his life saved. He didn't die up there. But he did bad things before that, and he has to pay for them.
In Breckenridge, Matt Jablow, 9 News.
Up and down every single day.
Alex Cabriala says he's been feeling a wide range of emotions ever since his sister was murdered about 5 weeks ago in Denver.
Deep sadness, frustration.
But lately, he says, he's been stuck on anger.
The system massively failed. Massively.
Alex's sister Pamela was shot to death in her car in late February. Soon after, police arrested 18-year-old Nishan Johnson and an unnamed 14-year-old. Both have been charged with first-degree murder, though police say the 14-year-old was the actual killer.
He wasn't just shooting to shoot, he was shooting to kill.
The motive? According to court documents obtained by 9 Wants to Know, Johnson told police he was driving on Colfax near I-25 with a 14-year-old in the front passenger seat when they were rear-ended by another vehicle, presumably Pamela Cabriales' SUV. Police say Johnson told them that the 14-year-old then asked, "Can I bust on them?" And Johnson replied, "Do what you gotta do. That's on you." According to the court documents, Johnson told police at that point the 14-year-old got out of the car with an AR-15 and fired 15 to 20 shots into the car behind them. Pamela was hit at least once in the head.
It was evil what this kid did.
Alex Cabriala says the 14-year-old should never have been out on the streets in the first place.
My sister was murdered because he wasn't incarcerated.
A police source tells 9 Wants to Know that 3 separate times, late last year and early this year, a judge released the 14-year-old from custody, one time each in Denver, Arapahoe County, and Jefferson County. The source says all 3 times the 14-year-old was charged with aggravated robbery, which means police believe a weapon was used during the alleged crimes.
My sister's life was taken because these judges let him out. They have blood on their hands, in my opinion.
Because juvenile records are sealed, it's not clear how or why the 14-year-old was released those 3 times. A spokesman for the Colorado state court system declined to comment.
It looks like the criminal justice system failed the family on this occasion.
9 News legal analyst Scott Robinson says 3 arrests in a month for aggravated robbery should have raised some serious red flags in court.
Typically, armed robbery bonds are 5 or 6 figure bonds, and usually that's enough to keep someone who's a real danger to society off the streets pending trial.
Prosecutors in the case have now filed a motion to try the 14-year-old as an adult. Alex Cabriala says that's clearly the right thing to do and believes the young man accused of killing his sister should never be released from custody again.
He's a threat to any society, any community that he lives in for the rest of his life.
In Denver, Matt Jablow, 9 News. Corporal Steve Hansen says he has seen a lot during his 8 years with the Saw Sheriff's Department.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
But nothing like what he saw inside this house in Crestone last week, a partially decomposed woman's body. And that was just the beginning.
Definitely strange and out of the ordinary.
Corporal Hansen said the body was found in the back room of the house, set up on what appeared to be some type of a shrine in a sleeping bag on a bed. He also said the body was fully clothed, decorated with Christmas lights, and with glitter makeup around its eyes.
I'm really not sure what to think about this whole thing.
The body has not yet been positively identified, but a witness named in the arrest warrant said it belonged to Leah Carlson, the leader of the cult Love Has Won, who also goes by the name Mother God. The Saw Sheriff's Department says the cause of death has not yet been determined, but it does not appear that foul play was involved. 7 people have, however, been arrested and charged with abuse of a corpse, essentially not taking proper care of a dead body. They were all in the house when the body was found. According to the arrest warrant, 5 of the people who were arrested drove Carlson's body from California to Colorado recently.
I've never seen a group of people be so nonchalant about a dead person in their back room.
Does it concern you that you live so close to them?
Yeah, it does.
Mark Adams says he has lived near the Love Has Won house for the past 3 years. He says he's never had any problems with the people who live there.
They usually keep to themselves.
But is now deeply concerned after hearing the news.
Having a cult live this close to me, it's really kind of crazy. Keeping the dead inside the house. Why would you want to do that?
In Crestone, Matt Jablow, 9 News. Colorado Bureau of Investigation denied gun licenses 20 times last year because the person who applied was a convicted murderer. The one time it happened in September, word spread very quickly to the home of Wally Long.
It's very concerning.
On March 1st, 2011, 12-year-old Gideon Long shot and killed his parents in their home in Burlington on Colorado's Eastern Plains and nearly killed his siblings, shooting and stabbing his 9-year-old brother and slitting his 5-year-old sister's throat. Wally Long is Gideon's uncle.
It's just so evil and so just terrible. You can't make sense of it.
Police never figured out why Gideon did it, but 6 months later he pleaded guilty and a judge sentenced him to 7 years in juvenile detention. He was released in 2018 and seemed to be living a quiet life until last September, when he was arrested for trying to buy a gun in Larimer County.
It just bothers me that somebody who's been convicted of murder with a firearm was trying to buy more guns.
Gideon walked into Shields All Sports in Johnstown, police say, and tried to buy a 9mm handgun. According to the arrest warrant, Gideon lied on his background paperwork, checking the box that he had never been convicted of a felony. Colorado law prohibits convicted felons from buying guns.
I would be concerned if he was living next door to me, that's for sure.
Wally says he's especially concerned by what he describes as Gideon's recent pattern of lies.
He enlisted in the Army back in March of 2021 or 2020 and was in boot camp before his background check came back that he was a convicted felon. Of course, they discharged him and kicked him out.
9 Wants to Know has confirmed with the Army that Gideon Long was discharged last September before completing basic training. They would not say exactly why, but did confirm that soldiers who lie on their applications are either discharged or court-martialed.
He's not faced up to the fact of what he did.
And there's more. 9 Wants to Know has learned that before Long tried joining the Army, he was certified in Colorado as an EMT, emergency medical technician. The Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment says on his application, Long stated that he had never been convicted of a felony. His certification has now been suspended.
The pattern of his life seems to be falsehood and lying, trying to get what he wants.
Gideon's latest alleged falsehood could land him in prison. When he was arrested last year, he told investigators he was buying the gun for a friend as a gift and thought his record had been sealed and that he didn't have to disclose that he had past felony convictions.
He knew that he had these felony convictions.
9 News legal analyst Whitney Traylor says even if Gideon believed his case was sealed, he was still required to disclose his felony convictions.
He literally checked off the box saying, I don't have a felony conviction. There wasn't any qualifier. So he clearly violated the basic language of that application.
I'm kind of hoping that the prosecutor in this case will throw the book at him.
Wally says in his heart he has forgiven Gideon for killing his parents, but is still haunted and deeply confused by the murders. 10 years later, have you been able to make any more sense of this tragedy?
I have not. I have gone over it in my mind from every angle, and I can't figure out anything. There's nothing that makes sense.
According to court records, Gideon is now out on bond and living in Loveland. Wally says he's hoping his nephew is convicted of the gun charge he's now facing, and that he won't be a free man much longer.
The charges he has against him could land him back in prison, and I would honestly rather see that.
Matt Jablow, 9 News.
It just doesn't make sense that a happy little boy would just fall asleep and not wake up.
He was extremely happy all the time.
His family says he was the most wonderful child.
He was, I think, the most loving little boy.
An 18-month-old bundle of playfulness and affection who never met a day he didn't like.
He's just happy, just hug everybody, just wanted a hug, you know?
Then, without any warning, that happy child was no more.
It's still the same for us. It's like it happened yesterday.
It was January 9th, 2019. Mike and Monica Hale say the day began like any other at their Fort Morgan home, which they shared with their daughter and her young son, Ben Pacheco.
Ben woke up.
After getting Ben ready for the day,
comb his hair, get him dressed.
His mom dropped him off at the in-home daycare on Elm Street in Fort Morgan, where Ben had been going for about 4 months. It was the last time she would ever see him alive.
Around 2:30, my daughter called me at work and said there was something wrong with him, that they were going to take him to the emergency room.
The daycare's owner, Teresa Beachley, told investigators she put Ben down for a nap sometime between noon and 12:30, found him unresponsive about 3 hours later, and called 911. That's all according to the police report.
Everything that we were told was that he had been down for at least 2 hours before anybody even noticed that he had passed away.
Paramedics rushed Ben to the hospital, but it was too late. He was pronounced dead just before 3:30 in the afternoon.
If he didn't go that day, I think he would still be here.
Ben's grandparents say all they've ever been told is that he went down for a nap here at daycare and never woke up. The autopsy report showed no signs of trauma on Ben's body, and the official cause of death is undetermined.
It's hard to even wrap your head around.
Sarah Cook says her 3-year-old daughter was one of 7 or 8 children being watched at Teresa Beachley's daycare the day Ben died. Cook says Beachley, with help from 2 of her daughters, often had more than a dozen children in her care.
She said she wasn't licensed because the outside of her house, the gutters of her house, that's all she ever told us.
And there was a lot more to tell. The Colorado Department of Human Services says they tried closing down Beachley's unlicensed daycare numerous times between 2015 and 2019, issuing 14 separate cease and desist orders. What's more, in October 2017, a full year before Ben died, a district court judge issued a permanent injunction against Beachley to stop providing unlicensed daycare. The Hales say they had no idea about any of this before Ben's death. I'm from Channel 9, and we're doing a story about Ben Pacheco.
No.
And I'm wondering if Teresa Beachley would chat with me.
Nope.
We tried speaking with Teresa Beachley, but the woman who answered her door in Fort Morgan said she wasn't home and wouldn't speak with me if she were. As far as the criminal investigation, 9 months after Ben died, prosecutors determined there was insufficient evidence to bring charges against Beachley. In a memo to police, the chief deputy district attorney did say that Beachley, quote, could be charged with a misdemeanor for violating previous court orders regarding the proper operation of an unlicensed daycare facility. Despite that, no charges have been filed.
Somebody should be responsible for the actions.
The Hales say not a day goes by that they don't think of Ben.
He was just a happy kid, man.
And they still can't believe what happened. The most horrible story imaginable, they say.
Oh, yeah.
A nightmare from which they have not yet woken.
Changes your life forever.
In Fort Morgan, Matt Jablow, 9 News.